She's like a sickness in my brain, a vision standing by the window pane. She ripples through the blinds and leaves me in a daze. It's in the way her body moves me, the way she grabs me and intoxicates, until the signals in my mind forget to operate. Fragile skull. I take my pleasure from my alcohol. She'll never give you any time at all. She just comes and goes, you know. And
Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel and thank you for joining me for another coffee and crime time. Usually in presenting these cases to you, I would do a little build up. I wouldn't come right out and tell you what happened or who done it. I drop in little details and build to the conclusion. I'd also try to be as unbiased as possible, looking at both sides, questioning, speculating, giving the benefit of the doubt. But in this case, none of that's really going to happen because in my personal opinion, there's no question about what happened here. And I'm not going to disrespect the memory of 8-year-old Connor Snyder and 4-year-old Brinley Snyder by doing that. I don't know what's in the air or the water or what the hell is happening in this world, but the past few years have introduced us to some of the worst mothers in the history of the world. Some of the worst parents in the history of the world. We had to deal with Lori Vallow, we had to deal with Chris Watts, we had to deal with Dr. Letitia Stauch, and now we get to climb into the twisted mind of 36-year-old Lisa Snyder. Now, I typically don't give trigger warnings on my videos, and that's just how I choose to run my channel because I figure, if you're a grown adult and you're clicking on a true crime video, you're probably not expecting a story that ends with, and they lived happily ever after. But I am going to make an exception today. This case will disturb you. It will crush your very heart and soul. It will make you feel like taking your brain out and just putting it into a vat of hand sanitizer. You will be angry. You'll be outraged and disgusted, but I urge you to stick with me through it. We have two beautiful and innocent children who deserve to have their story told and justice done. And we also have an innocent dog who was unlucky enough to be the pet of Lisa Snyder. So I'll be sensitive, as always. I'll be careful with the details. But for Brinley and Connor's sake, please try to keep watching, and please share this. I am very sick today. I have an ear infection and a sinus infection. I just started antibiotics today, so I'm so grumpy. I'm so grumpy because I don't feel good, and I hate antibiotics. They always make me feel sick. So I don't have a lot of patience in general. And for this woman, Lisa Snyder, if we can call her a woman, I have zero patience. I have zero tolerance. I have zero forgiveness. I have zero empathy. I have zero sympathy. I have zero mercy. Zero. But before we dive in and before I tell you something that you will never forget for as long as you live, let's have a word from the sponsor of today's video, Magellan TV. Magellan TV is a new kind of documentary streaming service that brings you films and series which will enlighten you, entertain you, and educate you. With over 3,000 documentaries currently available and more being added every single week, you can find something that everyone will be interested in on Magellan TV. Whether you're into documentaries about science, nature, true crime, history, or really anything else, there's a whole library to browse through and explore. Magellan TV is also easy to watch at home or on the go. If you're at home, you can watch Magellan TV on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and more, and it's available on both iOS and Android. As I said, they drop new content every week, and one of their new additions is a documentary called Finding Lee, A Tangled Web. Lee Matthews was abducted from the parking lot of her college. Shortly after her abduction, Lee spoke with her father on the phone for a short time, and then he never heard from her again. Now, this is really such an interesting case. I might even do a full video on it. But if you're looking for something true crime related to watch, I highly recommend it. Now, my viewers can take advantage of an exclusive new offer, 30% off an annual membership, which will give you an entire year for less than $3.50 a month. Simply click on the link in the description box to claim your discounted annual membership today. And if, there's a holiday coming up, someone's birthday, if you just want to be nice, a year's worth of Magellan TV would make an awesome gift. This offer is also available for returning users as well as new ones, so if you already got your trial month before and then you didn't renew, you can now take advantage of this offer. And I think it's pretty great because a lot of the time, services like this, they'll be like, oh, if you already signed up, you can't get new deals for new subscribers. So that's not the case here. Head to the description box, check out Magellan TV. I really don't think there's anyone out there who's into this kind of stuff, and I assume you are because you're here. I don't think there's anybody out there who won't be happy that they checked it out. Thank you so much to Magellan TV for sponsoring my channel, and let's dive into the case. On September 23rd, 2019, at around 4:30 p.m., Lisa Snyder called 911 from her home located at 2442 Route 143 in Kempton, Pennsylvania. The audio of that call has not been made public, but the following conversation between the 911 dispatcher and first responders has been.
54590 from the caller. Both children are they're hung in their unknown time at this time. First, can you repeat that? 41, both children are hanging in the basement. Burks, Captain 441. Captain 44, any indication from the caller if the scene is safe or how these children ended up there? She mentioned that the 8-year-old has been bullied and has made threats of doing this, but didn't want to go alone. It sounds like he may be the aggressor of the situation. At this time, it should just be the mother and the 2 children on scene.
So the dispatcher is telling the fire department that 2 children were found hanging in a basement, and the call was categorized as a pediatric cardiac arrest with 2 patients, these 2 children. So the fire captain who's on the phone, he asks, is there any indication from the caller on whether or not the scene is safe or how the children ended up this way? Because his first reaction is to think that someone bad did this to these kids, right? Someone must have come into their home and done this to them, and he wants to make sure that this person is no longer there so that, it's safe and the scene's clear. The dispatcher tells the fire captain, quote, she mentioned that the 8-year-old has been bullied and has made threats of doing this, but didn't want to go alone, end quote. The 8-year-old was Connor Snyder, a 3rd grader at Greenwich Elementary School where he was developing an interest in science, especially rocks and minerals. He would often bring rocks in to show his teacher. Connor had also just discovered a series of books called Dog Man, and he found these books to be hilarious, and his teacher recalled that he would be reading books during reading time in class, and he would just giggle as he read, and he had the best laugh. He was always smiling, he was always happy, and he was a friend to every boy and girl in his class. He loved doing the floss dance. If you don't know what it is, it's from Fortnite. I also have a 9-year-old. I have a 9-year-old son who loves Fortnite, and he's always doing the floss dance. But Connor loved doing it, to make people laugh. And it would bring a smile to his teacher's face because she would be grading his math homework, and Connor would be, flossing next to her. And Connor loved his 4-year-old sister, Brinley, who was in her 2nd year of pre-K. Often when he would be allowed to pick a reward for doing something good in school, sometimes if you do well on a test or if you help out a fellow student, they'll let you pick from a little bowl of treats or, toys that you can bring home. Well, Connor would often choose something that he thought Brinley would like, and then he would bring it home to her. And Brinley was just this adorable little girl. She reminds me so much of my Bella. She loved Frozen. She loved dressing up. She loved, wearing princess clothes. And Brinley and Connor were really close, which is really nice to hear because, like I said, I've got a 4-year-old, I've got a 9-year-old. I would not say that they're close. I wouldn't say that at all. So now their mother, Lisa, is calling 911. And she's building a narrative before she even speaks to a police officer. A narrative that would be really hard for anyone to believe. That her 8-year-old son had hanged himself and his sister in the basement of their home. Later, when Lisa would speak to police, she would tell them what happened that afternoon. This is Lisa's version of events, okay? So she says, Connor got home from school, he came inside, and he said he wanted to play on his iPad. But then he changed his mind, and he decided to play with his laptop, but then he couldn't find the power cord on his laptop, so he asked his little sister, Brinley, if she wanted to go downstairs in the basement with him and build a fort. Lisa stated to police that, quote, he loves building forts. That's his thing. They play downstairs in the basement all the time, end quote. Connor asked his mother if he could bring 2 wooden bar-height chairs down with him for the fort, I guess. And Lisa said he could, as long as he was able to get them downstairs and back upstairs on his own. And she actually goes into great detail about Connor bringing the stools downstairs. She said that he took the chairs down one at a time, one step at a time, and she kept hearing the thump. And she said it was a hard going, but, she knew he could do it. Lisa said it took him a while, but he got them down there. After the first chair, Connor came back up for a drink. And when both chairs were downstairs, he got another drink. And then he grabbed a single-wired cable dog lead with a vinyl coating and swivel eye snap hooks on both ends. He grabbed this off the kitchen table. Now let's talk about this for a moment. I've seen it reported places that this was a dog leash, but that's incorrect. It's a lead. It's different, right? They're usually longer, between 20 and 30 feet, and they're basically meant to put on your dog if you want to tie him up outside and still give him enough space and freedom to run around. The family did have a dog, 5-month-old Boomer, who was a black husky pit bull mix. But Boomer only weighed 50 pounds, and this dog lead was meant for much bigger dogs. It had a weight limit of 250 pounds, so it's like the max one, like the biggest one you can get, because if you have a dog that weighs over 250 pounds, you're probably not the one in charge at your house. So Lisa Snyder had ordered this dog lead from the Hamburg Walmart the night before, and she'd picked it up that same morning at 9:30 a.m. So she orders it at night. The next morning, she goes and picks it up, that curbside to go or whatever. And she wants us to believe that her 8-year-old son specifically took this thing off the kitchen table so that he could bring his 4-year-old sister downstairs and take both of their lives. Later, when Lisa was asked why she'd purchased the 250-pound dog lead when her dog only weighed 50 pounds, she claimed that Walmart had been out of the smaller sizes, so she was forced to buy the bigger one. Because if we know anything about Walmart, it's that they have a very limited selection of items to choose from. They're always running out of stuff. It's not as if there's literally dozens of other choices for dog leads under 250 pounds or anything, literally dozens. But, we can be understanding of this. Lisa must have purchased her dog lead during the well-known infamous dog lead rush of 2019. I completely forgot about that part of history where everybody was just trying to get a dog lead at the same time. So Walmart was out of all of them except this one. While Connor was going up and down from the basement, Lisa was folding laundry, and then she went outside with Boomer, the dog, and she had a cigarette. And she told police that she was only out of the house for roughly 10 minutes before she went back inside, and then she went down the basement stairs to ask her children if they wanted Chef Boyardee or frozen pizza for dinner, and that is when she found them. According to the affidavit of probable cause, Connor and Brinley were found hanging 3 feet apart. They were hanging from that wire dog lead, and this wire dog lead had been wrapped around the main support beam. One end was around Connor's neck, the other around Brinley's neck. The 2 bar-height wooden stools were nearby, tipped over. Connor and Brinley were still alive. What would you do if you found your children like this? You would do anything to get them down and try to save them, right? Yeah, normally, right? A normal person would do that. Well, Lisa told police that she tried to get Brinley down. Brinley weighed 40 pounds, but Lisa said she couldn't get the clasp on the wire lead undone because when she has spikes in stress and anxiety, she sweats profusely. So her hands were just so sweaty, she couldn't undo it and save her daughter's life. She couldn't have wiped her hands off or put a pair of gloves on. No. So Lisa left Brinley hanging, and then she tried to get Connor down, but Connor weighed 150 pounds. So she was unable to because she says he was too heavy. So she left the basement, and she called 911, and then, according to her own statement, she never returned to the basement where her children were hanging. She didn't pick up the stools and place them underneath Connor and Brinley. She didn't run screaming to a neighbor's house to ask for help. She didn't get a knife and attempt to cut the wire lead. She didn't get wire cutters that she probably had in her garage because she supposedly refinishes furniture and does all this stuff. She didn't even stay in the basement with her 2 young children as she made this 911 call and waited for first responders to arrive. She didn't stay there with them to provide them with words of comfort and love as they helplessly swung from the ceiling of her basement. She didn't lift them up to try and provide some relief. She didn't hold them and tell them that she loved them and that everything was going to be okay. She didn't tell them not to be scared because Mommy was there. She went upstairs, she got on her phone, and she just left them completely alone in their last moments of awareness, if they were even aware. At 4:41 p.m., the Kempton Fire Department EMTs arrived at the residence. Now, Eric Bubbenmoyer was one of them. Eric was employed as an emergency room nurse at Lehigh Valley Hospital. He was also a volunteer first responder for the fire department. This happened to be his day off from the hospital, so he was able to respond to the scene. He and the other EMT were told that Lisa Snyder would be waiting outside the house for them, but as they approached the house, no one was waiting outside. So they knocked on the door and Lisa Snyder answered. She was talking on her cell phone, and Eric would later testify that she seemed nervous and anxious, but she wasn't crying. Eric also testified that he asked her if anyone else was in the house, but she didn't even answer him because she was so distracted by whoever was on her cell phone. So he and the other EMT basically just walked into the house and made their way to the basement. Eric said that they scanned the right side of the basement and saw nothing. But when he looked to his left, he saw Brinley and Connor hanging from the rafters, and their bodies were still warm, so the EMTs immediately started working on freeing them from their nooses. All of this happened while Lisa Snyder was still upstairs on the phone. Don't you think that it would have occurred to her that she should have been in the basement watching while EMTs worked to resuscitate her children so that if they did come to, even for a moment, they'd be able to see their mother's face and maybe feel a little bit more safe? Eric Bubbenmoyer was able to release the clasp that held Brinley, but his partner was having a bit more trouble with Connor, who was admittedly heavy for his age. So Eric helped, and soon both children were down, and they were able to perform CPR on them. Upstairs, Trooper Jeffrey Hummel of the Hamburg PD had arrived, and he described a scene of absolute chaos. Lisa and some of her relatives were standing in front of the house talking. There were some other people sort of milling about inside, and he remembers that one of them told him, quote, "They're all in the basement," end quote. The children were unconscious but still alive, and they were immediately airlifted to Lehigh Valley Hospital, where they were put on life support. Now, Lisa would go on to be interviewed by police twice in the following days, and let's talk about what she told them. She indicated that Connor had been bullied on multiple occasions since the first grade, that he had told her he wanted to die. She said she didn't know the details of the bullying because Connor held the specifics back, knowing that she would have called the school, but she did say, quote, "He is overweight, has a speech delay, he needs extra help, a little slower to grasp things. Kids make fun of him because he's fat. He lost 25 pounds since school started because he was starving himself." End quote. Okay, so there's a lot to unpack here. First of all, I don't understand why you wouldn't have called the school, regardless of whether or not you had the details, especially if you noticed that your son was starving himself due to being called fat by his peers. I am sure we'll have to wait for the trial to find this out, but I did wonder if this weight loss claim had been validated, right? If it's true that Connor did lose that much weight in such a short time period. I believe that Lisa later told someone else he'd lost 25 pounds in just a few weeks, 3 weeks. Wouldn't that have prompted a visit to the doctor to get him some help? Because I think we can all agree that losing that much weight in a few weeks is not healthy. That leads me to wonder if Connor was starved, but not by himself. If Lisa Snyder knew what she was going to do, where this was all going, and there is evidence to show that this was premeditated, did she start withholding food from her son to support the alibi she knew she would later have to give law enforcement? Lisa went on to say, quote, "He tells me he hates school. Every day he tells me he doesn't want to talk about school. I did not see any problems till he told me about the kids on the bus. He just comes home and he is just angry. We had a little sit down last week and I told him, honey, if you ever feel like hurting yourself, please come to me. He did say to me when we were talking, I would have killed myself already, but I'm scared to go by myself." End quote. And there it is, folks. Lisa Snyder's narrative. Connor was being bullied. He'd made remarks about wanting to die, which apparently she didn't think was a red flag. She didn't think that was worthy of bringing him to see a professional who could help Connor with his poor mental state. He's starving himself and saying he wants to die, and you don't know the specifics, so you're just not going to do anything. Connor wanted to die because of the bullies, but he's a kid, right? So he doesn't want to face the unknown by himself. So he's going to bring his little buddy, his little sister Brinley with him so they can go together. Lisa laid it all out for the police, wrapped up neatly with a bow on top. No need for an investigation, right? Certainly not, because from the first moment, the police felt that Lisa's story was very off. Firstly, it's not super common for very young children to commit suicide. Now, I'm not saying it doesn't happen, so let me make myself clear, because I read way too many comments in the Phoebe Handsjuk video when I said that suicide's usually not a spur-of-the-moment decision, and everyone had a personal story to show me that my statement was false. It isn't false, since I said usually. Now, of course, there's always the exception to the rule, but anecdotal evidence, it's not statistics. Research shows that in the age group of 5 to 11, there are on average 33 reported suicides in the U.S., and to me, that number 33 is 33 too many, right? However, if you look at the overall suicide numbers in the United States, which is on average 48,000 people a year take their own lives in the United States. Those numbers and the disparity between those numbers, it does indicate that what Lisa was alleging happened to her son would have been considered incredibly uncommon. So definitely worthy of an investigation. The police interviewed friends and family. They interviewed people at Connor's school. They pulled security footage from Connor's school bus, hoping to see this alleged bullying for themselves. The day that Connor died, the footage showed him on the bus laughing and joking with the rest of the students. He wasn't getting bullied. He wasn't showing any signs of getting bullied. And then he got off the bus, smiling, showing no signs of distress, and he ran home, probably looking forward to getting a snack, playing with his sister, seeing his mother. Now, I looked in my phone calendar so I could see what day of the week September 23rd, 2019 was. And my schedule showed that on this day, I was recording Halloween content. Specifically, this day I was recording the LaLaurie Mansion video. This is obviously not relevant to the case, but it did sort of send a chill down my spine. I was at home recording and editing a video, getting my own 8-year-old son off the bus, while Connor Snyder was running happily towards his death. All the teachers at Connor's school were like, bullying? What bullying? They'd never seen it happen. Connor had never reported it to them. And as I stated previously, the teachers all said Connor got along with everyone because he was so funny and nice and easygoing. He had a lot of friends. Additionally, Lisa, Connor, and Brinley were not the only people living in that house. Lisa had a 17-year-old son, Owen, who resided there. And although he wasn't home at the time of the incident, he was interviewed by police later, and he also claimed that Connor wasn't being bullied, and he knew this because he'd asked Connor directly. Apparently, Lisa had made mention to Owen that Connor was having some problems with the other kids at school, so like a big brother would do, Owen approached Connor and talked to him about it, and Connor expressed confusion, and he said he was not being bullied. Owen also said that his little brother and his little sister, they never played in the basement because they were scared of playing in the basement, and he could only remember one single time where they'd played in the basement, and that had been the previous December when they'd received scooters for Christmas. So obviously it's like snowing outside, it's Pennsylvania, you receive scooters for Christmas, you can't go outside with your scooter, so you're going to go in the basement and ride around in your scooters. Owen did not dispute that Connor and Brinley liked to build forts, but he said they always built the forts in the living room using sofa cushions and chairs. They've never built a fort in the basement. Additionally, a friend of Lisa's told police that she'd gotten a text from Lisa on September 16th. And Lisa told this friend that her son Connor was suicidal due to being bullied at school. But this same friend picked Connor up from school that same day, and she saw him sitting with his friends and laughing when she pulled up. He was in a good mood when he got in her car, and he never said a word to her about being bullied or having thoughts of harming himself. And 3 weeks before that, Lisa had visited her friend and talked about how she was depressed, didn't want to get out of bed, and that she no longer cared about her 2 kids. So Lisa first tells her friend that she's depressed, doesn't care about her kids, and then 2 weeks later she's telling the same friend that Connor wanted to take his own life because of bullies. Could it possibly be that the I don't care about my kids part, since it came first, may have been a precursor to the let me start planting details and ideas in people's heads that my son wanted to kill himself part? I think so. Now at the hospital, Connor and Brinley were unresponsive. They had been in full cardiac arrest, and they had been resuscitated in the helicopter, but when they got to the hospital, they had to be put on life support. And Lisa was there with them, but she was not allowed to be with them in their room unsupervised. There had to be a security guard present at all times, and in my personal opinion, this was because the police couldn't be sure that Lisa wouldn't do something to her children while she was alone with them. to finish what she had started, allegedly. While her children were on life support, with tubes shoved down their throats and needles in their arms, Lisa did a lot of Facebooking. The Facebook profile she was using at that time was Ellie Carr, and this is apparently her middle name, Rochelle, spelled backwards. In the hospital, instead of holding Connor and Brinley's hands, singing to them, telling them she loved them, spending all the time she could looking at their sweet little faces, Lisa was busy on her phone, specifically Facebook. Now, the police would later take her cell phone, and it turns out that she had quite a few cell phones, but they hadn't done this just yet. So Lisa posted the family's above-ground pool for sale on Facebook Marketplace, and the caption read, quote, "I'm selling this new pool to help pay for my children's final expenses, as they were in a horrible accident. Serious inquiries only, please. I have a lot to deal with right now because of the loss of my children. Please don't waste my time," end quote. Well, first of all, she hadn't lost her children yet. They may have been unresponsive, they may have been unconscious, they may have even been brain dead. But their hearts were still beating, and who knows what they may have been aware of. Doctors in medicine can tell us a lot, but we don't actually know what it's like to be a person who is in a coma or on life support. We don't really know what they're aware of. Lisa was also messaging people on Facebook, and one of these individuals actually made these messages public because she felt that Lisa's behavior was beyond strange considering the circumstances. So this woman's name is Megan Sant, and she'd known Lisa for a while. Lisa sent her a Facebook message saying, "Update. It's not looking good right now. Their brains are swollen, but once the swelling goes down, they're going to do a brain scan to check for brain activity. They said hopefully tomorrow or Thursday they can do that. The doctor herself told us to prepare for the worst, and for a doctor to say that, you know it's pretty bad. And at that point, I'm going to have to make the toughest decision of my entire life," end quote. Let's unpack this too, right? Because just the balls on this woman. Let's be honest. If Lisa was told to expect the worst thing for her personally would be for those two kids to wake up. Why would she want them to wake up? If they did, they would tell everyone what had really happened. So she's typing out these sentiments. Oh, worst day of my life, hardest decision of my life. But in reality, the worse the doctors said it was for Connor and Brinley, the better it was for Lisa. Megan responds and says that, she's so sorry. She can't imagine what Lisa's going through. And Lisa writes back, quote, "Can't cry anymore. I'm completely numb. My life has been ripped to shreds and it's never going to get better. But I gotta try to stay strong for blank. And miracles happen every day. You never know. But I'm also not stupid. And I'm not going to get my hopes up," end quote. So first of all, you are stupid. You're a stupid, horrible person. But the name of the person that she's going to be strong for, it's blacked out, but I assume it was Owen, her 17-year-old son. But Lisa also says miracles happen every day, but I'm not going to get my hopes up. What kind of parent says that about their children who are on life support? At that point, all you have is hope. And you would not lose that hope until there was absolutely no chance that they would ever recover. But she's over here like, well, not going to get my hopes up, as if she's planned a tropical vacation and then someone told her that she might not be able to travel out of the country because of COVID. And she's like, well, I really want to go on a vacation, but I'm not going to get my hopes up. Lisa later sends another message that said, quote, "Update. They're not going to make it. The doctors will be pulling the plug tomorrow or Friday. They need to run a few more tests simply for the investigation. After that, my babies will be going to heaven to live with Jesus," end quote. Going to heaven to live with Jesus? Girl, you better get his name out of your mouth. So you've just found out that your children are going to die, that final sliver of hope is gone, and your first priority is to get on Facebook and update everyone? But don't take it from me. Megan herself said, quote, "She just showed no emotion or anything when she was talking about it, even when she was pulling the plug. Your kids are in the hospital on life support and you're messaging me about it," end quote. And just the fact that Lisa used the term pull the plug, there wasn't a softer or gentler or more sensitive way you could have put that. You're talking about your 4-year-old daughter and your 8-year-old son, and you're saying you're going to pull the plug? The fact that Lisa Snyder was even allowed to make the decision to take her own children, her 2 children, off of life support while she was a suspect in what had happened to them, it's a travesty. It blows my mind. Connor and Brinley were removed from life support on Thursday, September 26th. Brinley was pronounced dead at 4:26 p.m., and Connor followed her just 14 minutes later at 4:40 p.m. In the months following their deaths, Lisa Snyder created a Facebook page as a memorial to them called Remembering Connor and Brinley, where she apparently deleted any negative comments, and it's also reported that she had created quite a few fake Facebook accounts so that she could go on and defend herself on other Facebook pages about Connor and Brinley. But she never admitted that this fake account was her, right? She just pretended that she was someone who was close to the family and knew Lisa and knew that Lisa could never do this to her kids. The autopsies were done, and the coroner ruled that their deaths had been homicide. No drugs were found in their system, and I don't know if, the toxicology report would have included something over the counter like aspirin, something that she might have given them in a rare moment of pity or kindness, because dying from hanging is incredibly painful. It's terrifying. It's just a horrible way to go, because there's a difference between an execution style hanging and what happened to Connor and Brinley. A judicial hanging is much more humane because the person's usually dropped from a tall height. It's called a long drop, and that means that their neck usually breaks, making death quick and virtually painless. In this case, these kids would have died from strangulation, and this whole process will take much longer, and it's far more excruciating. First, the carotid arteries in the neck, which supply blood to the brain, would have been compressed, which causes the brain to swell so much that it basically acts like a plug at the top of the spinal cord. The vagal nerve is then pinched, leading to the vagal reflex, putting pressure on the heart. A lack of oxygen getting to the lungs eventually causes unconsciousness, and then you die of suffocation. And this can take anywhere from 5 to 20 minutes. And I have to feel that this would have been much more slow and painful and terrifying for 4-year-old Brinley because she only weighed 40 pounds. This is the way Lisa decided to kill her children, in the most painful and scary way possible. She tortured them, essentially. I take that back. Not essentially. That's exactly what happened. Lisa tortured those sweet, innocent children. Now, there were several search warrants executed at the home of Lisa Snyder. The first warrants were executed between September 24th and September 30th, and the police removed several devices from the home, including Lisa's cell phone, computers, tablets, and the Xbox that Connor liked to play on. At this point, the police were also looking for Lisa's dog, Buster, but he wasn't at the house. The public was made aware that the police were looking for this dog with the explicit purpose of weighing him, but we didn't know exactly why at the time. Later, one of the reasons would come out and then just add another horrifying layer to this case. But initially, what they wanted to do was weigh the dog so that they could kind of prove that the lead that Lisa had bought was way overkill for the, poundage of dog she had. Another search warrant was executed on October 2nd after the police talked to Lisa's 17-year-old son, Owen, and he told them that Lisa had more cell phones than the police had taken. So they went and they got a couple other cell phones, but what they didn't find was a Samsung Galaxy Note 9 that Lisa used, and she told them that she'd lost it the same day she found her kids hanging in her basement. She said she had picked up Brinley from school and put her phone on top of the car and then drove away, forgetting that the phone was on top of the car. Later, Lisa would revise that statement and said that, no, she'd lost the phone back in August, but that really didn't matter, right? Because the police found out through Lisa's Bluetooth system in her car that the Note 9 had connected to the car's Bluetooth after she claimed she'd lost it. The last time the Note 9 was connected to the Bluetooth in Lisa's car was September 27th, the day after she pulled the plug on her 2 children. Police have stated that they believe Lisa intentionally destroyed or discarded her phone after she made a joke with a friend about the police trying to find the phone. And even though the phone has still not been located, they're currently trying to see if they can use the Bluetooth system in her car to uncover information about a text received to that number the day of the incident at 8:15 in the morning, right before she picked up the dog lead from Walmart. There was plenty found on Lisa's other devices, however, so I can't even imagine what's on that Note 9. Let's talk about her Google searches, which in my opinion proves that this was a premeditated act. On September 17th, 6 days prior, Lisa searched carbon monoxide in a car, how long to die. On September 20th, she searched almost got away with it, best episodes. I mean, is she serious? Is her brain working in a way where she actually thinks she's going to get some great ideas of how to kill her children and not get caught from a true crime television show that is not titled I Got Away with It, but almost got away with it? On September 22nd, she searched hanging yourself, and moments later, she visited the website Short, Drop, Simple, Suspension, Lost All Hope. So I went on this website. I went on this website, and I'm going to depend on you guys to have my back here. If anything ever happens to me and the police are like, it was a suicide because we found this stuff in her Google searches, you better get an army together, okay? Because I promise you that if I ever die, it's not from suicide. So if they say that, let them know. Let them know it's not true. Play this video for them. I don't care what you have to do, but you better investigate my death. Anyways, I went to the exact website that Lisa visited, and it seems to be a place where those who want to take their own lives can go and sort of get advice on how to do this. But get this, the first few sentences on this exact webpage she visited, it says, quote, "This is probably the simplest way of hanging, and although unconsciousness is quick, it may not be instant, and thus may not be a totally painless method." End quote. This is literally the first sentence, and that's how she chose to kill her children. On September 23rd, Lisa Googled, "Do a hybrid car produce carbon monoxide?" And then she Googled, "Does a hybrid car produce carbon monoxide while idling?" Lisa was super busy on Facebook as well during this time period, and it appeared that she was messaging a man who has not yet been identified, at least to us. Like, I'm sure the police know who he is. And this is disturbing, okay? What I'm going to say to you next, so be warned, it's disturbing. Turns out that Lisa was forcing her dog, Boomer, to perform sexual acts on her. And then she was describing these acts to this man and sending him photos of the acts. On September 9th, Lisa messaged this man on Facebook saying, "He's eating my P word, Daddy." She then sent a message saying, "He keeps moving every time the flash goes off." She then sent a picture of herself and the dog while the dog was doing to her what she had described in that message. She sent another message that said, "He did good up until he started biting my labia." Now, I think she meant to type a different word, or maybe she just thought that this is how that word was spelled. I don't know, but I think that's the least of our problems. On September 15th, Lisa sent a message that said, "Sorry, kid problems," which was followed by another message that said, "Major kid problems." 2 days later, she messaged this man saying, "Things are bad, bullying issues, and tells me he wants to die. He's 8, lost 25 pounds in the first 3 weeks of school. Breaks my heart. I just want to cry." So am I the only one that thinks it's odd and really kind of just creepy that one day she's sending this guy pictures of unspeakable acts with her dog, and the next she's telling him about her family issues? Like he would care? You know, if he's talking to you because of you and your dog, probably he doesn't care about your family issues. But in my opinion, this is alibi building. Not necessarily for the police's benefit, because I truly don't believe she ever expected them to see these messages and the pictures, but for the sake of the man she was communicating with and wanted to continue communicating with after the death of her children. And the same day, she's saying that her son is losing all this weight, he wants to die, all of these horrible things. She keeps sending pictures and messages about her and the dog. Later, she sent a message that said, "Oh, Daddy, just took some good pics for you." And then she sent 3 photos. One was a picture of the dog with a human hand on his you-know-what. The next was an up-close picture of the aforementioned act where the dog was doing something to Lisa. So this was an up-close picture. And the last was a picture of Lisa dressed in black lingerie with a ball gag in her mouth. I think there was a nipple clamp involved too. I just don't want to think about it. She then sent a message saying he actually went for it all on his own this time, was laying in my bed in my underwear, and he started licking, so I went with it. Okay, let's pause. This poor dog. Poor Boomer, okay? I'm really non-judgmental about what people want to do in the privacy of their own bedrooms. When all that stuff about Armie Hammer came out and he was like a cannibal and he was asking women if he could like eat their flesh, I was like, well, you know, if the women that he's doing this with are consenting adults, who am I to judge? Who am I to judge what gets someone's engine revved, right? But this is unacceptable because animals are not consenting adults. We can't ask Boomer if this is what he wanted to do or if he was comfortable with it because he can't tell us. But the fact that she had to basically force him into it to begin with, that's a sign to me that it's probably not something he was super enthusiastic about. On September 19th, Lisa messaged the Facebook man again saying, "You'll hopefully see Sunday." So it looks like Lisa is going to take her dog and meet up with this man in person, which does not look good for Boomer because he would be outnumbered, right? Ugh, that poor dog. Good thing it didn't happen, because she sent another message saying, but I just found out Owen does work and it's an all-day job, so gonna try option B, which is my mom, so don't get your hopes up because she's a bitch when it comes to babysitting. How dare you? How dare you? So the motive is suddenly becoming clear, to me at least, right? Lisa had previously told a friend of hers that she hated being a stay-at-home mother. It depressed her being stuck at home all day. Now, there's no indication of why Lisa did not work outside of the home. I think she did some medical reporting from home. She also, like I said, refinished furniture and, sold it from some extra money. But both of her kids were in school all day. So she theoretically could have, right? She could have left during the day. At the very least, she could have grabbed a cup of coffee with a friend, taken a walk. It's not like she's a prisoner in the house. But here we have this relationship, right, with someone on Facebook, and she wants to meet with him in person, but she can't find a babysitter. So do you think that the presence of her children was putting a damper on her freaky-ass sex life? Do you think that it was a point of frustration for her, that she had to figure out what to do with her kids before she could even make a plan to do something for herself? And that's not crazy. We all feel that way sometimes when you have kids and your needs and your wants come last. But most people don't solve this problem by murdering their children. But if there wasn't enough proof that Lisa Snyder is the one who killed her 2 children and then added insult to injury by blaming this horrible act on her 8-year-old son, there is a great deal of evidence that proves Connor could not have done this by himself. Connor had been getting occupational therapy in school because of his below-average visual motor skills, and the police interviewed the certified therapist who'd been working with Connor in both the 2nd and 3rd grade. The therapist said that Connor had low hand-eye coordination and difficulty with dexterity when using his index finger and thumb pinched together. She was also shown a replica of the dog lead, and she was asked if she believed Connor would have been able to operate the clasps on either end. The therapist said that she didn't believe Connor could have. He couldn't even tie his own shoes. She also said that she didn't think Connor could have even stood on the chair by himself because he had difficulty with motor planning skills and he had poor balance due to his weight and strength. Now, seeing the photos of the crime scene, Connor's therapist also gave the opinion that the dog lead, it was too even on both ends for Connor to have done it because he would have had a hard time distinguishing where the middle was, and he would have had to have been standing on the chair for a long period while he wrapped this dog lead around the beam, the support beam. So she thinks it's too high for him to even do that. She doesn't think he would have been able to operate the clasp, and she says because of his issues, his learning disabilities and things, he would have had a hard time figuring out where the middle of that lead was, so it wouldn't have been even on each side like it was. So basically, this certified therapist who'd been working closely with Connor for 2 years didn't believe that he would have been able to successfully done any of this on his own. Lisa Snyder was finally arrested on December 2nd, and she was charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder, 2 counts of third-degree murder, 2 counts of endangering the welfare of a child, 1 count tampering with evidence, 1 count of sexual intercourse with an animal, and 1 count of cruelty to animals. Her pretrial hearing happened on February 25th, 2021, and a lot of stuff went down. Lisa's lawyer, Dennis Charles, filed a motion requesting the judge to separate the murder charges from the charges related to her dog, Boomer, because he believes that it would make the jury prejudiced against Lisa. And how is that a problem? How is it a problem for the jury in a murder trial to know just how depraved and disgusting the person on trial is? And since I truly believe that a big part of Lisa's motive was related to the dog and the Facebook guy, it seems super counterproductive to hide this information from the jury, which suggests motive. But apparently, Berks County Judge Paul Yatron doesn't really agree with me because on April 9th, just a couple of days ago, which is what actually prompted me to make this video because I've been following this case for a while. But on April 9th, this judge said that he would probably grant the defense motion to sever the charges because he could not see why there would be a reason for the jury to hear about the salacious allegations. Allegations? What? There's a photographic proof. Can we still call them allegations if there are photos of it happening? Come on, Judge. Come on, Judge Yatron. Do better. So I guess he hasn't technically ruled on this yet, but he's pretty much saying that that's the way the wind's going to blow. I think he said to the prosecuting attorney, you've got a lot on your plate, trying to, prove to me that we should keep this in. You have a challenge ahead of you, little lady. And I'm sure you've already figured this out by now because it's pretty typical, right? But Lisa's lawyer, he's going to pursue an insanity defense. He claims that Lisa Snyder has a chronic history of severe mental disorders, including major depression with psychotic features, anxiety disorder, affective disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, multiple personality disorder, postpartum depression dating back from the time when she was 16 and she gave birth to Owen. And because of this laundry list of mental health issues, she believed Connor and Brinley were being put through physical, psychological, or emotional pain by others, and this gave Lisa a fierce desire to protect her children from feelings of abandonment and or to alleviate the painful feelings and situations they were experiencing at the time. I bet you that Lisa Snyder finds God in prison too. That's just the next predictable step to getting arrested and not wanting to take responsibility for your actions. I think actually a Dr. T. Stauch actually taught this class, How to Get Away with Murder and Not Accept Responsibility for Your Actions 101. Maybe Lisa took it. And let's be honest, this is all bullshit. Child and Family Services in this area had already taken Lisa's children away from her once back in 2014. I believe it was because it was before Brinley was born, and it was just Owen and Connor that were removed. Now, the children were eventually returned to her, and CPS will not comment on why they were removed from her care in the first place.
Today, Snyder's relative told me off camera she was depressed and her two sons were removed from her home by Berks County Children and Youth. The relative says it was around July 2014. The relative didn't share many details but told us Snyder retained an attorney and then, as she put it, Children and Youth returned the children to Snyder's care. Her oldest son, now 17 years old, is staying with another relative. Snyder remains in custody, charged with killing her only daughter, 4-year-old Brinley, and her youngest son, 8-year-old Connor.
I don't know that there is any explanation for her behavior at all. I don't think that I can stand up here, nor can anyone explain the horrific loss of two innocent children's lives. I think it goes without explanation.
Today we called the Berks County Children and Youth offices in Reading to ask exactly why they returned the kids to Snyder. Our call was not returned. We also went to the office and a security guard told us we had to leave if we didn't have an appointment.
Now, here's my opinion. Lisa is as mentally healthy as the next person, as you and me, which isn't 100% mentally healthy, right? Because we all go through stuff. We all got stuff going on. But I'm not going to believe that she had PTSD and multiple personality disorder and all of that, and it all went unnoticed by everyone until this very moment. What happened here is Lisa and her lawyer were like, okay, we've got to find a reason for why you did this that makes you appear to be sympathetic to a jury. And what's relatable? Emotional struggles, right? Bingo, everyone can understand that. And let's look up other cases where parents have killed their children due to mental illness, and we'll just copy the reasons that they gave, specifically the Andrea Yates case. If Lisa was concerned about her children dealing with physical pain, she would not have removed them from the world in the way she did. She would have found a better method, one that didn't involve any pain or fear. She did it the way she did so that she wouldn't get caught, so that she could point the finger at her poor son and say that he did it. Connor and Brinley's feelings and happiness were the very last thing on Lisa Snyder's mind. In fact, I would go so far as to say that she didn't consider them at all. And I'm not new to this world, okay? I realize that some crimes are committed due to the presence of a mental illness, but I also know that some criminals use this insanity defense as a shield to not face their consequences. Lisa Snyder is crazy as hell, crazier than an outhouse fly, crazier than a bedbug, but she's not insane. She knew what she was doing. She planned it. She watched I Almost Got Away with It because she wanted to get away with it. Now she wants you and me and the world to believe that she had her children's best interests at heart. She killed her kids. She tried to blame Connor for it. Now she's insulting their memory even further by trying to convince everyone that she did this only because she loves them so much. And I want to punch her right in the face for Connor, for Brinley, for Boomer, the dog. Punch her right in the face. Now, the state is seeking the death penalty. And I know this is a controversial issue amongst people. We've talked about it before. We don't all agree, and typically I don't believe in the death penalty unless this person has confessed and there's enough evidence where it's not really even in question, especially when we're dealing with cases that involve the deaths of innocent children. In this case, I have no problem with Lisa Snyder being found guilty and getting sent to death row. I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry, because it's the best possible outcome. She will have years to sit behind bars and relive what she did, because you don't get sent to, the electric chair right away. But that's even assuming that she feels bad about what she did, and I don't believe she does. And then her life will be taken from her, just like she took Connor's life and Brinley's life, and if heaven or hell exist, we know where she's going. A person who was experiencing all the things her lawyer claims she wouldn't even been lucid or logical enough to try and cover up her crimes, to try and avoid being caught. She wouldn't have started this bullying lie months before, telling everyone that Connor was having a hard time and talking about dying. She wouldn't have started building her narrative with the 911 operator. She wouldn't have mysteriously lost her cell phone and then joked about how the police were trying to find it. Now, Lisa Snyder will be joining the ranks of the world's most terrible and evil parents in my mind. She's going to be sitting right between Chris Watts and Dr. T. Stauch, and she'll probably have a great discussion and conversation with Lori Vallow about how kids can really put a damper on your romantic life. To think about the terror that these children went through. Lisa has the balls to claim she was trying to protect them from feelings of abandonment. How she was able to get them to go along with her plan is beyond me, I don't know, but I'm sure it wasn't too hard, because they were children, and she was their mother. And they trusted her. When these two children felt the rope around their necks cut off their ability to breathe, they were probably so confused and scared. They probably looked at their mother for help, thinking she was going to help them, cut them down, save them. But all she did was walk away, leaving them to die alone, in pain, scared, and abandoned, which is the thing you were supposed to be saving them from. And I hope she burns in hell for the rest of eternity. I hope hell exists just so people like Lisa can go there and never have another moment of peace or happiness. But you let me know what you think in the comment section. This is one of the most disgusting cases that I've ever come across in a long time. And, I'm really interested in hearing your thoughts on it. But we also have to remember that her trial is going to be coming up soon. So I'm going to be paying close attention to that, because if this woman gets off with an insanity plea and that defense actually works, we got big problems. I'm going to take to the streets, okay? I refuse to allow that to happen. So let's just hope it doesn't come to that. Let's just hope. Thank you guys so much for being here. I know that this was probably hard, but I appreciate those of you who stuck it out with me. And I will see you very soon. I'm very upset now and agitated, but on the upside, I think the adrenaline from my anger, it made me feel kind of better. So, I don't know. But I am going to go edit this so I can get it out for you guys. Thank you so much for being here. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Also, follow my podcast that I co-host with retired police detective Derek Levasseur. We have new episodes every Friday, and we also have a YouTube channel now, so I believe the episodes come out on Friday on the podcast platforms and then Wednesday on YouTube, so I'll link all that in the description box. I usually would talk about more and kind of be cheerful, but I'm so pissed, so I'm going to go before I keep yelling at you guys. Some of you say, I have a soothing voice, and that's why you watch it. And I just ranted and yelled at you for 30 minutes, so maybe longer. And so I'm sorry about that, but I'm just gonna go. Thank you guys so much for being here. Stay kind, stay beautiful. Bye.
Eyes on the road, look on ahead. Don't let the wheel color your sky. Take on the world that's surrounding you. Paint the red blue if you want it to shine. You'll see all roads lead to home. Stars will be lost under the crowd, and pyramids fall under the sun. Follow the light that's been guiding you. Kick to the sand that's been winding you down. too.